Hi guys, this is O-Level Chemistry, paper 11, June 2016, question 11. Group 1 metals form compounds with group 7 halogens. The compounds formed are dash in water, so we have a choice between soluble and insoluble, and contain dash bonds. So the compounds are soluble in water. So options A and B gets eliminated. And now they contain dash bond. Now the issue is when you have group 1 metals forming halides. So it is NaCl. So NaCl has an Na positive ion and a Cl negative ion. Therefore, they are soluble in water and contain ionic bonds. So option D has ionic, option C gets eliminated, making option D the correct option for this question. Question 12. Compound P is the only substance formed when two volumes of ammonia gas react with one volume of carbon dioxide gas, which means 2 moles of ammonia react with 1 mole of CO2, and compound P is the only substance that is formed. That means the product will contain two, two nitrogen atoms, 6 hydrogen atoms, 2 oxygen atoms, and 1 carbon atom. So option A has 2 nitrogen, 6 hydrogen, 2 oxygen, and 1 carbon. In B, we've got 2 nitrogen, 4 hydrogen, 1 oxygen, and 1 carbon. In compound C, we've got 2 nitrogen, 8 hydrogen, 2 oxygen, and 1 carbon. And in compound D, we have got 2 nitrogen, 8 hydrogen, 3 oxygen, and 1 carbon. So they all have the same number of nitrogen and carbon as the compound that we require. Now, it will have 6 hydrogen atoms. So option A has 6, option B has 4, option C has 8, option D has 8. And we require 2 oxygen atoms. Option A has 2, option B has 1, option C has 2, option D has 1. So the only option with all the same number of elements as written in the question is option A, making A the correct option for this question. Question 13. Two isotopes of chlorine are Cl35 and Cl37. Using these isotopes, how many different relative molecular masses are possible for the compound with the molecular formula C2H3Cl3? So, since we have got 3 chlorine atoms, we will have 4 possible MR values. How? We'll just see. So these are the 4 possibilities. Now, in the first possibility, all the chlorine atom will have a mass of 35. In the second case, all of them will not have 35. 2 of them will have a mass of 35. In the third case, only one chlorine atom will have a mass of 35. And in the last case, none of them will have a mass of 35. Now, the other set of possibilities. As for 37, all 3 will have a mass of 37. Only 2 will have a mass of 37. Only 1 will have a mass of 37 and none will have a mass of 37. So considering all of these possibilities, there are 4 possible relative molecular masses of C2H3Cl3 possible, making option C the correct option for this question. Question 14. Gases can diffuse through porous spots. The diagram shows a beaker full of nitrogen inverted over a porous spot containing carbon monoxide. Okay. The water level does not move. That means gases are not diffused out into the glass tube. So, which statement explains this? Nitrogen is almost inert. This is a fact, but this does not explain why diffusion doesn't happen. The two gases have equal molecular masses, so we'll have to calculate that. The MR of nitrogen is 14 into 2, 28, and that of carbon monoxide would be 12 plus 16, which is also equal to 28. So they both have equal molecular masses, so they would have the same rate of diffusion. So one gas will not be able to push the water level in the glass U tube. Next, both gases have two atoms in a molecule. This is also a fact, but not the reason for there is no change in the level of water. And neither gas is soluble in water. This is also a fact, but not the reason why the water level stays the same. Therefore, the correct option for this question is option B. Question 15. Aqueous copper to sulfate is electrolyzed using carbon electrodes. Which observation will be made? At the positive electrode is the anode. At the anode, what will happen? At the anode, uh, chlorine gas will be oxidized. So, colorless gas forms, electrode decreases in mass, and electrode decreases in mass. So, electrode will not decrease in mass because it is an inert electrode, and we will have formation of, okay, it's copper to sulfate, not copper to chloride. So oxygen gas will form, not chlorine. So we will have formation of oxygen gas. So colorless gas forms because chlorine gas would also have been green in color. So this eliminates options C and D. Oxygen is a colorless gas which forms at the anode. Okay, and the electrolyte is blue in color and the blue color will fade. So this eliminates option B. And at the negative electrode, which is the cathode. Now, cathode reduction takes place at the cathode. So we have copper ions depositing as copper metal, and the color of copper metal is pink. Therefore, pink solid forms. As a result, the correct option for this question is option A. Question 16. Which ion is not present in dilute sulfuric acid? Okay, H positive, yes. H2H positive plus SO4 2 negative from sulfuric acid, H positive and OH negative from water. So H positive is present, OH negative is present, sulfite is not present, sulfate is present. Therefore, the correct option for this question is option C. Question 17. The diagram shows an energy profile diagram for a chemical reaction, both with and without a catalyst. Which energy change is the activation energy for the catalyzed reaction? Okay, so the activation energy is the energy gap between the reactants and the maximum energy state, which is known as the transition state. So here we've got one curve which is represented by A. A is the activation energy for the uncatalyzed reaction. A catalyst decreases the requirement of activation energy, which is shown by the next curve, whose height is represented by arrow B. So the distance in the energies from reactants to the maximum state in the lower curve is the activation energy for the catalyzed reaction, making option B the correct option for this question. C represents the enthalpy change that takes place during a chemical reaction or the energy given off, and D represents the enthalpy change plus the activation energy for the uncatalyzed reaction. Question 18. Which equation does not represent a redox reaction? Okay. So in the first reaction, we have ammonia in which the charge on the nitrogen atom is -3, and we've got sulfur which has a charge of +6 on it. In the products, nitrogen has a charge of -3 and sulfur has a charge of +6. There is no change in oxidation state, so this is not a redox reaction. In the next example, we've got SO2. SO2 has sulfur with an oxidation state of +4, and on the product side, we have SO3 with sulfur with an oxidation state of +6, which is an oxidation reaction. So this is a redox reaction. In C, we've got iodide with a charge of -1 and chlorine with a charge of 0. And on the product side, we've got chloride with a charge of -1 and iodine with a charge of 0, making this a redox reaction. In the last one, On the reactant side, zinc has a charge of 0, and on the product side, zinc has a charge of +2, whereas on the reactant side, hydrogen has a charge of +1, and hydrogen gas on the product side has a charge of 0, making this a redox reaction as well. Therefore, the correct option for this question is option A. Question 19. The diagram shows the apparatus used to measure the rate of the reaction between calcium carbonate and dilute hydrochloric acid. The mass of the flask and the contents is measured at regular intervals of time. Which graph correctly shows how the mass of the flask and contents change with time? So, as time progresses, the mass of the flask would decrease, and when the reaction will stop, the mass will become constant. So, graphs A, B, and D are all incorrect because all of them are showing that the mass will eventually reach 0, and we do not have the flask becoming weightless. The weight of the flask will be there. Therefore, option C is the only correct option because it has a constant mass present after passing of some time. So C is the correct option for this question. Question 20. Which row correctly compares high carbon steels and low carbon steels? So high carbon steels will make the steel stronger, eliminating options C and D, and low carbon steels are the options are more brittle or more easily shaped. If the amount of carbon present is less, that means they are more easily shaped because there is more metal, so the steel is relatively more malleable. So more brittle is incorrect, more easily shaped is correct, making option B the correct option for this question.